The Diablo 4 team just lost one of its key members. Valve announced 3 new toys this week. A popular game is literally giving money back to players who spent money on cosmetics. And Sony might be wondering why they spent $3.6 billion on Destiny 2. In this week's video, we're talking about Diablo 4's community shakeup, what the Chinese version of the game looks like, and a very sneaky in-game survey. We'll talk about Valve's new Steamtendo GameCube ecosystem, why Arc Raiders is Nexon's biggest launch ever, and what Grinding Gear Games is doing with Path of Exile's latest patch, and the road to the next PoE 2 update. Hey folks, this is Riker, and I dig into ARPG and gaming news so that you can spend more time playing games. Chapters below to skip ahead to different topics. And I'll start with a quick note. The remaster of 2008 ARPG Sacred 2 released this week. I got a full video going over my first impressions. It's a real mixed bag. Do check it out. So kicking off with Diablo news, we have some sad news. Adam Fletcher, aka Pez Radar, Director of Social and Content Marketing, has announced he is leaving Blizzard effective November 19th. To the community, Adam was the head of the community managers, and he has built up a wonderful community team. He was a face we would see on campfire chats, a name that would pop up to address questions or concerns in Reddit threads, and we'd even see him pop into the Twitch chats of people streaming Diablo 4. In fact, during the latest round of interviews with the devs, a lot of important extra details came straight from Adam in Twitch chat when the devs would be unsure about what details they could reveal at this time. And on a personal note, for those who are not aware, community managers serve as the points of contact between content creators like myself and Blizzard. Pretty much any interaction I have with Blizzard, whether it's to coordinate an interview or to plan a trip to BlizzCon or even just to pass a message along to the dev team, it all goes through, first, the community team. So Adam is someone I've worked with and personally interacted with both online and in person at various venues for years now. And it's under Adam's stewardship that we've seen the greatest amount of communication between Blizzard and the community and content creators. There used to be this iron curtain, this veil that could only be pierced once every blood moon. Brandy Camel, the previous community head, she'd been working hard back since the Diablo 3 days to open up communication between the Diablo team and the community, and Adam got to grab that momentum and build up a robust community team that ushered in a new era of transparency and openness and dialogue and just open lines of communication. And whenever influencers are invited to events, community managers basically act as our handlers because, we influencers are barely functional human beings, and Adam and his team have always treated us well. So yes, I am sad to see Adam go. I think it's a big loss to Blizzard, and he's going to be a tremendous asset to whatever company is hiring him next. Also, those biceps, am I right? Now, speaking of those interviews, I had missed a detail from the Korean duck interview, but it seems like waypoints will now be automatically unlocked at season start if you skip campaign. This is great. Lots of players have been asking for this. I myself have been wondering why we have to find them all over again every season, and it seems the answer is, well, now we don't. Another headline making the rounds, people are getting a view of what Diablo 4 looks like in China, and apparently a lot of people are not familiar with the self-censorship that devs do to release their games in China, because this is really not surprising. Though I have to say, seeing the Wandering Death Treebone world boss turned into a funky rock monster is hilarious. It just feels so low effort, like copy-pasting a rock over and over. It's so goofy, I love it. But yeah, this happened with WoW, it happened with Diablo 3, it happens with plenty of Western games that release in China. Basically, to get your game published in China, a foreign publisher needs to get approval by the National Press and Publication Administration. If they don't approve your game, you cannot sell your game in China, which has become one of the world's largest gaming markets. So you're leaving a lot of money on the table. China's NPPA has established certain guidelines on what will get your game denied, and that includes certain depictions of blood, corpses, exposed bones, skeletons, and other undead, and gore and dismemberment. And what's important to stress here is that it is the regulating body that is banning these things, not Chinese society itself. So it's not that China bans skeletons, it's that the NPPA does not want certain things presented in certain ways in media to its children. And there are ways that Chinese games can include these things, like skeletons and such, in ways that are deemed acceptable. But because foreign publishers don't fully understand the cultural norms, they err on the side of over-censorship because they don't want to risk their game failing to pass review. Western devs also can't publish a game in China without a Chinese partner, which Blizzard used to have in NetEase before Bobby Kotick pissed them off so bad that the NetEase employees literally live-streamed themselves destroying a giant World of Warcraft statue at their offices. But after Bobby left, Microsoft struck up a new deal with NetEase in 2024 to once again distribute its games, or Blizzard's games at least, in China. And this summer, Blizzard's games finally passed regulatory approval. So now Diablo 4 finally officially comes to China. Then the last bit of Diablo news, a survey popped up in-game, clearly visible when you log in, prompting you to answer questions in order to directly influence Diablo 4's development process. Now, we've had similar surveys go out in the past, generally randomly via email under confidentiality agreement, where they'd ask you about potential upcoming features and stuff like that. But players answering this survey quickly began to realize that this was nothing like those other surveys. This survey was asking questions about your video streaming habits, your shopping behaviors, your social activities, what charities you support, your household income, your marital status. And at the top of the survey, you can see that it's being conducted by YouGov, a US-based marketing and data analytics firm that helps businesses with market research and demographic targeting. In other words, not the Diablo 4 team. So that's strange and has pissed off some people, rightfully so, because you present a survey under the guise of it being related to gameplay feedback, right? You load up a game, you see a survey thing, it's in the game, you would think it would be to give feedback to the devs about the game, but then clearly it's really just saying, please let us siphon marketing data out of you for the next 30 minutes. Then moving on to some huge news this week, we got the reveal of the Steamtendo GameCube. No, but in seriousness, Valve revealed 3 upcoming products with no price point and no release date. A new VR headset called the Steam Frame, a new Steam Machine, a next-gen gaming console, and a new Steam controller. All 3 will ship to the same regions that Steam Decks are currently available, which is still an unfortunately limited market. And the goal is to have them all shipping in early 2026, but no firm dates. All 3 devices are optimized to run Steam games, but the Steam Frame VR wireless headset will also support Android games, as well as all your non-VR Steam games, to clarify. It could also run games natively or through your PC, while still being fully wireless. Now, the main differentiation between the Steam Frame and the Oculus is that the frame seems to actually be much more lightweight. I think it's like half the weight if you don't factor in the strap. And also, it's not owned by Meta, so that's a big selling point by itself. Now, allegedly, they're trying to keep the price point of the Steam Frame to under $1,000. But even if it comes in at close to $1,000, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people who are not already sold on VR. The Steam Machine itself is a tiny 6x6-inch cube that runs SteamOS with the specs of a budget PC. So nothing impressive in the hardware, only 8 gigs of VRAM, which is a bit concerning, and you can use the Steam controller with it or any other regular input device. Now, I think for this one, the price is really going to be what makes this an interesting option. People are guessing price points anywhere between $500 and $1,000. If it comes in close to $1,000, this is going to be a real tough sell. But if they can get close to $500, then I think we can start seeing Steam machines in a lot of homes. It's funny because Xbox is planning its next-gen console to be effectively an expensive high-end PC. And it feels like the Steam Machine will be competing directly with that, albeit with much lower specs, and therefore it has to win on its price point. Oh, and they have to sell a version with a companion cube skin. I mean, they just have to. The new Steam controller can be used wherever you run Steam, be it PC, your Steam Deck, your Steam machine, or even with the new Steam frame, actually. The old Steam controller was beloved, and this just seems like a strict improvement over it. The trackpads are the real magic. They address the mouse and keyboard forward experience better than any alternative controller. But the new Steam controller also has grip sensing, a feature that's used in conjunction with gyro controls. So you actually have 3 ways to use your Steam controller: the standard thumbsticks, the trackpads, or the new gyro controls. The Steam controller has a special way of sensing when you are holding it, which will engage the gyro controls if you choose to activate them. Then when the gyro controls are active, tilting and aiming the controller will move the mouse cursor in an intuitive way with an accuracy higher than thumbsticks. If there's one of these 3 devices that'll be a must-buy for a lot of people, it's going to be the Steam controller. But which of these are you folks most excited about and why? Sound off in the comments. And for Steam Deck fans hoping for a Steam Deck 2 announcement, well, it seems Valve is waiting for technological breakthroughs because they want the Steam Deck 2 to be a major upgrade over the first. They said they're looking for something that is more than a 50% performance boost, and advancements in silicone and chip architecture just aren't yet at a place to make that happen. That means we could be looking at 2027 or even 2028 before we see a Steam Deck 2. Then in some Arc Raider news, the extraction shooter has become publisher Nexon's most successful global launch in its history. Since October 30th, it has sold more than 4 million copies. And now, the devs are adding duo priority queuing, big win for the community, but also they are lowering store cosmetic prices. And not just that, they're refunding people who already spent money on cosmetics. They're refunding them the difference between the old and the new price. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a popular game do this before. This actually makes me want to try out the game, even though extraction shooters aren't really my jam, particularly because of the lack of PvE. And speaking of that, Morgan Park from PC Gamer dug into Steam achievements for Arc Raiders and found that 2 weeks post-release, only about 42-43% of players had amassed 10 or more kills. And I don't mean in one match, I mean like ever across all of the matches they've ever played. 19% never even killed anyone. Now, of course, you have to point out that there are a million caveats to this data. People who, bought the game and never played it or barely played it, they're bringing down those numbers of kills. And one way to interpret this data is that Arc Raiders is such a sweaty game that it's being dominated by a few pros while most people are just getting thoroughly trounced. But when you hear anecdotes, stories from people actually playing the game, I think what's really happening is that you have a game where a lot of players just don't really want to engage in PvP. There's a lot of cooperation rather than betrayal. And I hear a lot of people even play extraction shooters with the express purpose to avoid combat and just sneak out with loot. I hope this gets the devs thinking about adding a dedicated PvE mode in the future, because if they do, they're going to get a whole new wave of people buying the game. But what about you folks? What are your thoughts on Arc Raiders? Would you buy it if they added co-op? Sound off in the comments. In some Path of Exile news, we got the patch notes for patch 3.270C, which will fix a bug where using currency in maps, like on strongboxes, could use currency from your map device rucksack. This apparently was unintended, even though most players just assumed it was an intentional quality of life feature. So hopefully GGG will reconsider re-implementing this popular bug. The patch also adds over 80 new Foulborn uniques, a number far higher than anyone expected, although it doesn't seem like many of them will end up seeing use. This is kind of a general trend with unique items in PoE, and for balance purposes, I get it, right? PoE does not want to be a game that, all the items in the end game are just unique items, right? Crafting is such an important part of the game, and you don't want that to be supplanted by now everyone just picks a unique item for every slot. That said, it just seems like so much work put into something that sees so little use. Then there's some changes being made to Breach Hive encounters that I think some folks are misinterpreting. And they're kind of getting annoyed and saying, oh, well, what is this? So let's clear it up here, assuming my understanding is correct. So there were two issues going on. People hated the busy work of dealing with all the walls, and melee characters were struggling to keep from getting ambushed by a billion incoming monsters. So to address both these issues, they've first off added a variety of obstructions to the center of hive fortresses. This is going to help funnel monsters into choke points to make it more manageable for melee characters. And then on top of that, number two, they're also making it so that if you destroy a burnable hive pack spawner, it'll release a wave of purple flame that will destroy all walls in a radius. And that effect can also chain to other spawners. So you can destroy a ton of walls very quickly. It seems people just read the first part and they're like, what, we're annoyed by walls and you're giving us more walls. Overall, these seem like good changes. Then we also got an announcement for PoE 2. The devs said they are still on track with their 4-month release schedule and are planning to launch the 0.4.0 content update in early December. The live stream date will be revealed very soon. I think this is when we finally get the Druid, folks. In other news, superhero workplace comedy game Dispatch finished releasing this week. It's had a weekly episodic release structure since October, and all 8 episodes are now out. The title has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, and it features the voice work of Aaron Paul. It's a narrative-driven game in which you manage a team of misfit heroes, deciding who to dispatch where, with a focus on the development of relationships between its characters. I've seen several people say it's even better than a Telltale game back in Telltale's prime, so that's saying something. Following Dispatch's success, the devs say they'll think about a Season 2, so it seems plans are not already in the works, as I believe the devs' next project is actually a collab with Critical Role's Exandria. I mean, after all, Laura Bailey stars in Dispatch as well. Then in Destiny 2 news, seems Sony may be having some buyer's remorse. Or at least Sony's chief financial officer has stated during a public earnings call that Destiny 2's level of sales and user engagement have not reached the expectation it had at the time of acquisition of Bungie. Sony bought Bungie back in 2022 for $3.6 billion and got with that the Destiny franchise and basically nothing else. Bungie's new team-based shooter Marathon has been in the works for a while and has suffered a rocky development, with its release having been delayed indefinitely back in June. Now, the Sony CFO is saying Marathon is expected within the fiscal year, which gives it a deadline of, I believe, March 31st, 2026. I remember Destiny 2 being huge when it launched, but still, a $3.6 billion valuation for Bungie just seemed incredibly high. And since the acquisition, Destiny 2's popularity has only gone down, with a lot of players suggesting that Bungie mismanaged the game. Just from an outsider's perspective, the decision to vault content seems terrible. There's content in the game that you can no longer play because Bungie removed it. Planets, activities, quests, these are all things that can go into the vault, possibly to be brought back in the future, but really no guarantee on that. And it was allegedly done to save disk space, which is it's an admirable goal. But still, 4 years into a game's life, to spring this on players? It's one thing to introduce content that you warn players, hey, we're adding this content, it's not going to be permanently in the game, it's going to go away after a few months. But to do a rug pull after 4 years and say, yeah, all this content you've been enjoying for 4 years, we're going to just start randomly pulling content you paid for. And you might not ever be able to play it again. I'm sure there's some better solution to the problem of the game getting too big. But Destiny 2 fans, what are your thoughts? Has Bungie mismanaged the game, or are you still enjoying it? Sound off in the comments. In some last Epoch news, the game's publisher Krafton has begun to offer employees voluntary resignation packages worth between 6 and 36 months' salary, while also freezing hiring. And this comes shortly after Krafton announced it was transforming into an AI-first company with a 100 billion won investment into the AI sector. This has some Last Epoch fans once again concerned, and Last Epoch head Judd Kobler tried to reassure them by saying that Krafton is a large company with many subsidiaries, and 11th Hour Games is actually hiring many roles and currently growing in size. Krafton, after all, is a publisher, a separate company unto itself, and it seems the AI focus is more so on the publishing arm of the business, not something being enforced downstream on game developers. In fact, Krafton even clarified that the hiring freeze excludes subsidiaries that are developing original intellectual property, i.e. EHG and Last Epoch. So it's good that people are paying attention to what's going on, and we should keep paying attention, but we don't need to prematurely doom on Last Epoch. We should be getting some Season 4 news soon, and this team is still cooking. Then, in an update on our GTA 6 story from last week, wherein Rockstar was accused of union busting by firing a bunch of employees who were all part of the developing union at the company. Check out last week's video for full details on that. Well, the update is that now over 200 employees from Rockstar North have signed a letter to management in which they outright accuse the company of union busting and demand the reinstatement of their 30-plus fired colleagues. And more protests are planned to take place later this month. An organizer from the Independent Workers' Union of Great Britain said, quote, "By deciding to fire more than 30 union members, Rockstar have carried out an Amazon-style act of union busting unprecedented in the games industry. This is a company that benefits from more than £440 million in UK tax relief, while displaying a callous and blatant disregard for both the livelihood of workers and the letter of the law. The UK has strong labor laws. We in North America are not used to this. And my understanding is that the UK government can actually force an employer to rehire a fired employee if they rule in their favor. So we'll see what happens. We also got a small update on No Rest for the Wicked this week. Development of co-op is coming along, and there is soon to be another Wicked Inside showcase that will demo the new features and multiplayer in detail. At this point, I'm expecting co-op to come in 2026, but hopefully quite early in the year. I'm eager to dive back into Wicked with the co-op launch. Now, folks, be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discuss the Diablo 4 bombshells revealed during some recent dev interviews. Because that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more gaming content.